Hey, what's going on, Houston Texans fan? Mello Mike here for the Bull Bash podcast of the Houston Texans fan. Thank you guys for joining me, and let's get into talking about this. The Houston Texans week one. It's kind of like that rerun. We've seen it before. So it's very, very difficult to imagine that this offense comes out week one and looks almost identical to the Bobby Sloak offense that we saw last year. Very, very disturbing to us as Texans fans. Not at all the bag of goods that we were promised. So the question we have to ask is, were we sold a bag of goods? Because if so, I'm not holding this bag. I want a refund on my money. And it's very, very disturbing to me to see this offense repeat the trend that we saw last year, with not only not scoring points in the second half, but also not scoring any offensive touchdowns, one red zone trip. And it's Kylie Fairbairn giving us all 9 of our points. Not at all something that we're happy with. And we have to discuss what happened there. What went wrong? And I'm going to ask people in the chat, just go ahead and respond and give me your comments there. What exactly do you feel happened? Are you buying the excuse that CJ Stroud gave that the offense was not prepared? Because I'm calling bullshit on that. And let me tell you why. If you go into the off season, you get your schedule release before you begin OTAs. You get it before training camp. You get it for the preseason. So you know who you're facing week one well in advance. And that is more time than any other given week that you're going to have to prepare for an opponent. So I'm not buying that. What I am buying is that I think Nick Caley honestly outsmarted himself. He overthought this. And this is my take on that. First of all, you're using 3 offensive linemen to replace one injured guy. And let me tell you exactly what I mean about that. You shuffled 3 spots. So in addition to Ed Ingram being out with the abdominal injury, you now have created 3 different spots by moving Ursery to right tackle, moving Titus to right guard, and then bringing Cam Robinson off the bench. Okay, you disrupted that chemistry that you've built since Cam Robinson went out and Ariante Ursery has been working at left tackle, exclusively at left tackle. You do not sit there and continue to do what the Texans have done year after year, moving these guys around, flip-flopping positions. There is an old saying, jack of all trades, master of none. That's what happens when you move guys around and you don't let people develop at a position. It's the same problem that we've seen consistently year after year after year with Titus Howard. Is he a right tackle? Is he a right guard? Juice Scruggs, same song and dance. Is he a left guard? Is he a right guard? Is he a center? Jared Patterson, center, left guard. You got to start putting these guys at one position and allowing them to develop at that position to get good at it, to master that position. I don't buy into flexibility. I don't buy into, well, he could play here or here, and it makes him more valuable. It hasn't made Juice Scruggs more valuable because the Texans still don't trust him. That's why you shuffled 3 spots on the offensive line, because you couldn't go to the guy you drafted in the second round and plug him in at right guard. And then you got a right tackle that you don't trust. But guess what? Injuries happen. Jake Andrews goes out. And then you've got Jared Patterson goes in. So now you've got more spots. And then Cam Robinson gets injured. And now you have to reshuffle again, moving Ursary from right tackle to left tackle and bringing in Blake Fisher, a guy that you don't trust, at right tackle. And it's perplexing to me. You don't trust the guys. Why are they on the roster? And you can't tell me it's because they were second round picks, because we just got rid of Kenyon Green, who was a bust of a first round pick, and we shipped him to Philadelphia after 2 disappointing seasons. Both of these guys have been here that length. So that is a problem with the offensive line. Secondly, you're telling me you go in to play the Rams and you're Nick Caley and you have no wrinkles to your offense. You did nothing creative, nothing new. You just go in there and say, we're going to beat Sean McVay head to head. And this is the offense we're going to use. An offense that, when it comes to his run game, he's the master of. This is his run game. It's the duo gaps scheme that he uses in Los Angeles. And Nick Caley knows he knows this. So you come out, you're bland, you're uncreative. There's no play action. There's no getting the wide receivers open through route concepts that we were all thinking was going to happen, being that Nick Caley is a former Ram under Sean McVay, and that's what Sean McVay is known for. And then you don't use your best offensive weapon, Nico Collins. And you can't tell me it's that Ahkello Witherspoon, the Rams cornerback, was capable of locking Nico Collins down. We've seen Nico Collins go up against far better cornerbacks than Ahkello Witherspoon, and no disrespect to him. You know, he's a pro football player. He's an average starter. But this guy is not in the category of a Derek Stingley or a Kamari Lassiter or a Sauce Gardner or a Patrick Surtain. He's nowhere near that. There is no reason why Nico Collins should have been limited to the way he was. Your offensive game plan has to figure in a way to get him open, a way to feed him the football in order for your team to be productive. It's called relying on your best players. And it's disappointing to see the Texans come out falling flat. The only encouraging thing that we have in this showing was the fact that the Texans averaged around over 4 yards per rush. And that CJ Stroud, while he's dinking and dunking, was at least taking what the defense gave him, because the offensive line would not allow him to pass deep because of that Rams pass rush. Congratulations. You're officially last year's Texans, and you imported that team to 2025. And we're now watching the rerun. And I have to ask this, what in the hell is D'Amico Ryans thinking? You know what Sean McVay does. He moves his best receiver into the slot. He hunts the mismatches. And you allow Puka Nacua and a guy named Smith to get locked up on Jalen Petrie in pass coverage, knowing he's a liability in pass coverage. Sean McVay was recruiting Devontae Adams in the offseason. He was sending him video, leaving him comments, telling him how they would use him, while Devontae Adams was on vacation in BG or somewhere. You can't tell me he didn't watch that tape of the Texans last year against the Jets and see how Devontae Adams took advantage of Jalen Petrie in the slot and say, hey, that's exactly what I do in my offense. We're going to use that. We're going to bring that over here with you, and we're going to allow you to do the same thing that you did in New York with the Jets. And you don't think he had that in mind when he was game planning for this game? You got to be out of your mind. And I said this when the Texans extended Jalen Petrie. You're paying him not as a star linebacker. You're paying him top nickel cornerback money. You're paying him. He's a defensive back. He's listed as either a safety or a nickel back. And he cannot cover. That makes him a liability. That was my whole pushback against the Jalen Petrie extension, was that he was a liability in coverage. He's essentially an extra linebacker on the field who excels at making tackles around the line of scrimmage and creating extra pressure as a pass rusher. That's it. His coverage has always been suspect. Whether he's playing back deep as safety or whether he's in there at the nickel covering guys in the slot. And that has not improved. And you went and you extended him and you paid him top of the market money as a nickel to come in here and do the same thing. Okay, you're not paying him as a linebacker. As a matter of fact, you'd probably have gotten better coverage as a linebacker, putting a linebacker on whoever was in the slot, whether it was Christian Harris or EJ Speed out there trying to cover in the slot. You experimented with this package with Jalen Smith, the rookie from USC, and Kamari Lassiter, bumping Smith outside. You know, that is something that you had with Kamari Lassiter bumping inside to cover the slot. But you didn't use that. Instead, you went with the same old thing. And you know what Sean McVay did, and you made no adjustments. And that's what you harped on Bobby Slowick for. That's what you fired him. You said he could not. Hey, what's going on, brother? How you doing? You could not, just go in here and say that we're going to use Jalen Petrie to cover our slots. And you're not going to tell me that, it's not going to happen again? We saw no improvements. So what was the expected result? That's the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over repeatedly and expecting a different result. Demeco Ryans, congratulations. You pulled a Bobby Slowick. You failed to make an adjustment in game. And we've got to sit there and ask this question. Demeco Ryans has got to be able to be a coach. And to be able to be a coach, you have to separate your love for your players in the moment and be able to make the right decision for the team. We felt like he was doing that when he fired his friend, Bobby Slowick. But then we see instances where Jimmy Ward's still on this team. And any other team in the league, he would have been cut. Yet Jimmy Ward is still on the commissioner exempt list, still listed on this roster. We see it with players that they don't trust. Juice Scruggs, backup right guard. Don't trust him, won't play him. Blake Fisher, backup right tackle. Don't trust him, don't want to play him. And then you got Damian Pierce in the backfield, another player, unproductive in the last 3 seasons since his rookie year, where he rushed for almost 1,000 yards. And he's giving you the same repeat performance. You went with your trusted back, Dare Ogunbowale. And yet, he was doing good. But in a critical moment in the game, guess what? Dare coughed up the football. Fumbled that ball away. And this is a 30-year-old veteran running back that probably is not on many NFL rosters on other teams that have depth at the running back position. Dare Ogunbowale has made this team Because, yes, he is a good special teams player. Yes, he could pick up the blitz on third downs. But he's also made this team because of the obvious fact that the Texans do not have any depth at the running back position. You drafted Woody Marks. You brought in Nick Chubb. You don't make those moves when you have depth. And instead of using Woody Marks as a receiving back that we all know that he is, Steelers fan in the chat. Having a heart attack there. You forgot what it looks like to have 30 plus points in a game. Congratulations for you. I wouldn't say the Steelers don't have depth at running back. They've got Kalen Johnson, who's a power runner from Iowa State, Jalen Warren. It's week 1. I will get that running game time. It'll work out. But back to the Texans anyways. It's like they say with quarterbacks. If you have to play 2 quarterbacks, that means you have no quarterbacks. When they talk about the system quarterback. Okay, when you're sitting there and you're going with the committee, it's because you don't have a bell cow running back capable of carrying the load. Joe Mixon is a bell cow running back. And there is significant drop-off between Joe Mixon and Nick Chubb and everybody else on that depth chart. And we've been waiting 3 years now for Dameon Pierce to develop after having 1,000 yards rushing. And it has not presented itself. This is a scheme that he's supposed to be very comfortable with. It's gap. And he is a gap runner. And he is not excelling in this. And I've said it over and over. Dameon Pierce is a volume runner who benefits from multiple carries. And sometimes he will produce explosive plays. But for a majority of the time, he gets stuffed in the backfield, stuffed at the line of scrimmage because he lacks vision. He lacks creativity as a runner to break tackles. And the Texans find themselves in a lot of trouble here. Because if you watch football this week, there's been a lot of things happening. The Los Angeles Chargers absolutely announced with Jim Harbaugh that they are contenders this year by knocking off Kansas City week 1. They've shown that they are now ready to play with the big dogs in the AFC. You saw Baltimore and Buffalo going head-to-head. Both of them putting up around over 30 points. Those teams are going to score points. Those teams are still the 2 best with Kansas City in the AFC. They are not going to change that. That's the top 3. And you've got us, and there's Denver, and now Pittsburgh. Yeah, the Pittsburgh Steelers, for at least this week, and as long as Aaron Rodgers could stay healthy, are considered contenders because they could score points. They showed that. Can they do it consistently? That's a question. Maybe it's a lot of hype. This is the Jets. But the Jets have a very good defense. And Aaron Rodgers benefiting from short fields, albeit, threw for 4 touchdown passes. So the AFC is not a cupcake. In order to make the playoffs, you're going to have to go through the elite teams. Kansas City, Baltimore, Buffalo. Then you got the up-and-comers. Pittsburgh's in there. The Chargers, the Broncos. The Texans are in that category. The Bengals. And we'll see if there's other teams. I mean, I'm not buying into the Colts dropping 30 points. That's week 1. And their best player, Jonathan Taylor, didn't get a single rushing touchdown. It was all through the airs with Daniel Jones. And I know a Giants fan out there who is mighty pissed because of the quarterback purgatory they're in, and seeing Daniel Jones excel with the Giants, with the Colts. Would I say the Jets gained people's confidence as a legitimate team or picked apart the Steelers' defense? I would say the Jets leaned into their identity. They did what was going to be the strength, and that's not leaning on Justin Fields as a passer. That's being able to exploit defenses, very similar to what Baltimore does with the attention that Brees Hall generates as a running back, and also coupling that with what Justin Fields does as a rushing quarterback. When you have more than one person to worry about as a rusher, like Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, it makes it very, very difficult to defend the run. And Pittsburgh is generally a good run defense. But as you should know, Baltimore's in your division. When they have to face somebody that's got a dual threat and a legitimate running back in the backfield, I think, yes, that's going to be the Jets' identity this year. And they're going to see if they can develop something out of Justin Fields as a passer. And eventually that's going to come to bite them. You know, Justin Fields is great as a rusher, but when it comes time for him to actually have to throw the ball to win a game, that's when you're going to see if you're the real deal or not. Can they develop Justin Fields as a passer? That's a big question. So until Justin Fields proves that he can actually lead a team through the air and come through in those moments where it matters most, where a quarterback makes his money, I'd say that people are going to be kind of waiting and seeing if they have confidence. But I mean, for week one, yeah. I mean, compared to what you've had with the Jets, they put up 30 points. I think people's confidence is up, but I don't think they view them as a legitimate team right now. I think that they just kind of are using that Ravens cheat code to exploit defenses right now, and then teams are going to adjust to that. You know, so it's like I'm saying though, it's the AFC is loaded this year, and the NFC is getting better as well. If you want to contend with these teams on the road, this is what you have to do. You have to be able to win football games on the road, and the Texans show an inability to do that. They struggle on the road. They're better at home in front of NRG. Good teams win on the road. Defense travels. Old sayings throughout the NFL. You've got to be able to win on the road in hostile environments and overcome crowd noise. That's just what good teams do. And the Houston Texans have struggled on the road. And now we've got a Monday night game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And historically, the Houston Texans have not done well in primetime games either. And you're facing an offense with Baker Mayfield that admittedly not what we expected them to look like against the Falcons, but that is a divisional game. Those are kind of quirky. But then you're going to have that Tampa Bay defense with another big challenge for you up front with Vita Bear. That man is one of the better defensive tackles in the National Football League. And say what you want about Todd Bowles. That man can coach defense, and he's got himself a winner on his hands with Tampa Bay. His biggest question mark is going to be, can this offensive coordinator succeed where Liam Cohen left off? And that's another thing that people have to look at. Tampa Bay Buccaneers were dead last in the league in offense. Liam Cohen last year took them to a top 10 offense within one season. Tremendous turnaround for Tampa Bay with Baker Mayfield. And now you got Emeka Egbuka out there tearing it up. To go with Mike Williams already. I mean, Texans record prediction for the year as of right now. Do they make the playoffs with what we've seen from the AFC teams in week one? Yes, I would say the Texans. I still see them floor 10-7. I can still see them coming back and winning possibly 11 to 12 games if they get this offense on track. Even with this production, it's not going to be consistent. There are going to be weeks where they tick up. And the AFC South is just not a competitive division right now. Jacksonville, they beat the Carolina Panthers. Everybody does that. The Colts dropping 30 points. How long is that going to last? And Daniel Jones, when he's facing a legitimate pass rush like the Texans have, we've seen that before. And then the Titans are going to be scraping through it this year. So, yes, I would say the Texans can make the playoffs. But again, between 10 and 12 wins, you're looking at going into the playoffs as possibly the 3 or the 4 seed. You don't have home field, which means you got to travel on the road. You got to go to Baltimore. You got to go to Buffalo. You got to go to Kansas City. And the Texans do not play well on the road. Another thing that good teams do that this Texans team is struggling with right now, a lot of penalties. And the Texans have created a lot of penalties on themselves. It was the reason why we got rid of Laramie Tunsil, because of penalties and because of the message that he sends to the locker room through his actions. And not necessarily actions, but his lack of actions as a leader. And yet the Texans go out there and they've got 80 yards in penalties. I get it. The Texans play an aggressive brand of football. And the opposite of aggressive is being disciplined. But you can be aggressive and still be disciplined. There are good teams that are aggressive out there. The Pittsburgh Steelers, with some of their better defenses, have been aggressive without committing penalties. The Baltimore Ravens defenses, aggressive without committing penalties. You have to sit there and be in control of your situation and play smart. That's what it's about. Playing smart and disciplined football and being aggressive. Being aggressive is taking chances. Being aggressive is not committing penalties. That's what the Texans have to do. In order to win football games in the NFL, it's the same formula. It has not changed over the years. You control the ball, time of possession. You beat teams on third down, the money down, third down percentage. You score when you're in the red zone percentage. You win the turnover battles, and you win the penalty battles. If you do at least 3 of those 5 things, you're going to win every week. Texans had the Jags, Ravens, Seahawks, Titans, Colts, Chiefs, and Chargers on the road this season. Arrowhead and going against Herbert in LA is rough. That is true, but they also have a very good stretch of home games in there as well. If you look at that schedule, just looking at that, like Baltimore is a tough one, and Baltimore is a game that I still expect is going to be tough. I think that's going to be one of those games that, it's kind of what they call a flip game. It could go either way if the Texans offense starts to improve. Texans offense as it is now, they go into Baltimore with this, they're losing. They're getting blown out again, just like Christmas. At the Jaguars, we've won more consistently in Jacksonville Stadium than they have. I'm not concerned about that. The Seahawks, 12th man advantage, well, as of late, it has not been the advantage that it was in the Legion of Boom days. The Titans, that's a rivalry game. And we love nothing better than to go up to Nashville and embarrass the Titans in front of their own crowds. The Colts, we also got winning records in Lucas Oil Stadium. Nico Collins is led the Texans to 3 consecutive victories at Lucas Oil Stadium since D'Amico Ryans has become head coach. The Chargers in LA, that's not really a home field advantage. The Chargers and the Rams have that problem where they just don't consistently sell out that stadium and allows for opposing teams to travel. And it's a good drive, but it's one that Texans fans are willing to make the trip. I can guarantee you that if the Chargers or the Rams play against Steelers fans travel. You'll see some black and gold out there in the crowd. They play the Chiefs. You're going to see a lot of bread in that crowd. Good fan bases travel. But I get the point. Yeah, the Texans have to start being more consistent on the road. So that's definitely something they have to do if they are wanting to make this next step and go past the AFC divisional round, which is the goal to get to the AFC championship game. And from what I've seen week one, unless this offense does some serious soul searching and make some adjustments and changes, and this is just week one, it looked bad. But if this continues throughout the season, this team is probably not making the playoffs. But I think they're going to adjust. Steelers fans definitely crowd a lot of stadiums on the road like Chiefs fans. Yeah, absolutely. I've seen Texans games with a lot of black and gold in them. You know, Steelers have a long established fan base. Granted, right now it's kind of a disgruntled fan base with, the kind of rinse and repeat Mike Tomlin effect with the Steelers consistently making the playoffs and then being one and done. Uh, Steelers fans want to see more. Absolutely. They're just like Texans fans. The Steelers fans want to see more than just make the playoffs and lose and go home. They want to see some wins. They want to see some progress. Texans fans, same thing. We go to the playoffs, we win the wild card, we get bounced in the divisional round. We don't want to see the same effect. No team ever says at the beginning of the season, I would like to make the playoffs. It's not the goal in the NFL. The goal at the end of the season is to win the Super Bowl. It's what all 32 teams, with the exception of the Dallas Cowboys, are trying to do. If you're not in the NFL to win a Super Bowl, then what are you doing there? Obviously making a lot of money. But you got to sit there and win the big one. Nobody takes you seriously until you win a Super Bowl. It's why people consistently have downed the Houston Texans, because they have not done anything in their franchise history. In 23 years, the Texans have never been to an AFC championship game. They're 0-6 in the AFC divisional round. And they have never made it to the Super Bowl, let alone the AFC championship game. So, we're going to get ready to wrap this up here within the next about 5 to 10 minutes. So, any more questions, go ahead, hit those up. And then, we got to look forward to week 2. And let's just take a look here. I mean, got to get more than 188 yards passing from CJ Stroud. Too good of a quarterback. The most productive thing you got, Nick Chubb, 13 carries, 60 yards, 4.6 yard average. Looks a little bit like Nick Chubb, but that's kind of the range I expect Nick Chubb to carry the ball at, between 12 and 15 carries a game. But the biggest disappointment, Nico Collins, 3 receptions, 25 yards. That's not a good look. Week 2, Texans will be down both Kirk and Dell. Now, concerns and or thoughts. Tank Dell is, we've known this since the Kansas City game afterwards with the injury report. Tank Dell was not going to be available this season. As for Kirk, that's going to be wait and see. He's got a hammy. Those things. He could be good to go next week. He could not. I expect a different outcome, being that the Texans offensive coordinator Nick Caley is not facing a coach that he coached under and mentored him for a couple of seasons in Sean McVay. I think you'll see the creativity open up. And, a couple of Texans receivers that you can't sleep on is the rookies there. Jaden Higgins, he only had 2 receptions for 32 yards on 3 targets. So he's going to slowly be worked in a little bit more. The rookie Jalen Noel had 1 reception for 7 yards on 2 targets. So those guys, yeah, definitely as supporting receivers, they have to be more involved. And they were 2nd and 3rd round picks that we drafted this year. We definitely expect them to be more involved. And Christian Kirk, I mean, kind of the thing with him, he gets injured. That's why he's no longer in Jacksonville. And it's to the detriment of a lot of Texas fans that they brought him in. It's relying on a receiver who has an injury history, albeit, it was a collarbone and it wasn't, an ACL or anything that's going to affect you performance-wise. The guy still has problems with keeping himself healthy and available. But the Texans did get some good production out of their tight end room. That's the one thing that they did do. Dalton Schultz had 3 catches for 28 yards on 5 targets. Cade Stover had 4 receptions for 22 yards on 4 targets. Nick Caley doing what Nick Caley does, which is getting production out of the tight end room. Is it explosive production? No. CJ Stroud's averaging 5 yards touch. But he's tempering his desire to throw the ball deep and not forcing the ball and creating turnovers. He's actually doing more of what that Tom Brady type of offense is he is consistently giving or taking what the defense is giving him, completing passes underneath. The only problem is the Texans weren't getting in yak yards. There wasn't a separation. So, and then we're going to look at some week 2 here and see what kind of schedules we got going. Just pull this up. All right. Week 2. Washington at Green Bay. That's going to be a great game. That's going to be 2 contenders in the NFC. Jacksonville at Cincinnati. Cincinnati is going to smoke Jacksonville. You're going to see that while they beat the Panthers, they're not going to beat the Bengals. Giants in Dallas. Who knows with that one? Chicago at Detroit. I mean, Detroit looks like a different team. We'll see what Chicago is tonight. The Rams at Tennessee. I fully expect the Rams to take advantage of Tennessee. New England and Miami. Miami look rough. Dolphins fans, good luck on the next coaching search. San Francisco at New Orleans. San Francisco had better win that game. If you're able to, you should do a Saturday or Sunday live stream pregame analysis for Sunday games. I'm going to be doing trying to get down to doing a Friday podcast. And I mean, kind of picking them right here for you. Buffalo at New York. Buffalo should win that game. Seattle at Pittsburgh. If it's the same Pittsburgh Steelers, they should win. Seattle's got an improving defense with Mike McDonald. So who knows there? Baltimore, Cleveland? We don't even need to answer that. Denver at Indianapolis. This same Indianapolis Colt team shows up. Denver could have problems. Carolina at Arizona. Honestly, that's a coin flip right there. Philadelphia at Kansas City. What do you see there? If the Philadelphia Eagles team that showed up against the Cowboys shows up to Kansas City, I very well expect them to lose. Kansas City lost that game to the Chargers, but it took Justin Herbert being absolutely perfect to be able to beat the Chiefs. And Justin Herbert, passing-wise, is a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts, who also, in that game against the Cowboys, failed to get the ball out to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So that new offensive coordinator has got to start utilizing those talents. And then you got Atlanta at Minnesota. Again, we're going to find out what Minnesota is tonight. still through the first, 4 weeks of the season, we're going to make our determination as to what the Falcons will be. And then Monday, we got the Texans hosting the Buccaneers. Hopefully, Texas can bounce back. And then you also are going to have the Chargers and the Raiders, which everybody would say, from what we saw, Chargers should win that game. But, that's a rivalry game. And there's a long-standing history between the Raiders and the Chargers. So you never know there. So with that, any last questions? Not, we're going to go ahead and end the stream here. Thank you for watching. All right. Y'all have a good night. I will catch you later. Yep. Last thing, if you were able to, no, it's the same question.